What matters to the award-winning musician, actor, TV personality, and entrepreneur, Mr. Eric Nam? Please welcome you on stage from Goldhouse as well, Bing Chen. Come on up, guys. Give it up, please. You got one on the seat. Thanks.
What's up, all that matters? The best for last. Good afternoon.
Hello.
First of all, we have to take our shoes off because this is an Asian household. And we have to promote our socks. This is a company called Ondo, O-N-D-O. These are the best hidden socks that won't leave your feet. The founder is
They're
here.
amazing.
Eric is an investor, full disclosure.
I highly
grifter.
recommend.
Anyway, in all seriousness, we are very lucky to have the Eric Nam here today because there are very few artists who've not only transcended their creative format, in Eric's case music, but also continents as well as businesses. These names are like Ryan Reynolds, Pharrell Williams, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's only so many. And so I want to start with sort of where it all began, Eric. I want to start with music. We all know that there's been an amazing sort of K-pop boom, as it were, which I'm sure you're annoyed to hear about by now. But I'm curious, for you personally, where does your musical inspiration come from? Who is talking in the back? You all know when you speak while a singer speaks, the singer actually dies. It's like Tinkerbell and Peter Pan. So don't talk. All right.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. A pleasure to be here. And thank you, Bing, for that incredibly generous introduction.
Deserved.
Musical inspiration. I think, this is very cliche. Maybe it's overset, but it's everyday life. It's our stories. It's our lives. It's the stories of my friends and my family and myself. And I think that's why I find myself whenever I'm traveling, wherever I am, any intrusive or crazy or weird or happy romantic thought I have a note that I'm always writing down. And then when I'm getting into album mode, I sit in a room with strangers, oftentimes producers and writers, and we have a therapy session and it ends in a song. And that's kind of where the inspiration comes from.
What's the weirdest thing that's happened to you recently?
The weirdest thing that's happened to me recently?
Don't answer that. Next question. As we just discussed, you've been one of the few K-pop artists to not only transcend, but also nicely traverse both Korea, the West, and beyond. I'm curious, what are sort of the next evolutions in K-pop? And perhaps more broadly, what are the opportunities now in music that you're seeing as a savvy, business-oriented artist?
I think when it comes to K-pop specifically, I think, to be frank, some people say that K-pop's in some sort of lull because we don't have these mega acts that are taking over the world on a regular basis because some groups are on hiatus, such as BTS or Blackpink, etc. But I think in the coming 18 months, there's going to be a perfect storm that's brewing. Not only will Blackpink and BTS and some of these mega groups have a comeback, but we're seeing the comeback of K-pop legends such as G-Dragon, 21, these household names that really drove K-pop to where it is today as well. And then we have, if we look at the West, a lot of these K-pop labels collaborating with Western labels to put out new groups like Cat's Eye, which is a Hype Geffen collaboration. We have SM doing a similar thing in the UK. And so we're taking the K-pop formula and applying it to a Western artist and people who are very, very diverse, which I think is honestly very exciting and refreshing because it provides a structure and training to artists that oftentimes has not been seen in American pop or Western pop. And so if you're looking at the entire ecosystem, there are many new openings that are starting to kind of show, but will continue to develop in the next, I think, year to 18 months that are very exciting.
These East-West hybridized sort of artists is a really compelling idea. What are the other sort of opportunities or challenges you're seeing within music writ large?
I think monetization and distribution are still something that artists, independent artists particularly, might be trying to figure out. I, as an independent artist, still am trying to figure out how to go about it. But having said that, indie musicians have become such a staple in the lexicon of music and what we listen to and what culture is driven by. And so we look at the top 1%, and yes, the majority of them may be signed to a major traditional label, but we see so many people bubbling up to the top and really making foray into really uncharted waters as independent musicians. So providing support and resources and building that ecosystem so that independent artists have a more stable, secure future, I think is very, very important.
Plus, there's a commercial imperative on this as well. I remember a decade ago was the first year where indie label and independent musician market share exceeded that of the largest major label, Universal, and that has remained unchanged and actually been growing in its disparity since. Plus, as you know very well, we'll talk about your business dive in a moment, but Gen Z's tastes are increasingly fractured. They're a vibe, not a genre, and so all the more why typically a lot of large incumbents can't super serve those more nuanced tastes, which is something I feel like you've surmounted. Let's talk about another creative format, which is film and television. How many of you know what Avatar: The Last Airbender is?
Yay!
Wow, just this side of the room. What are you all watching? Oh, okay, all right, you're watching it. All right, fast followers, that's okay. We accept you. For the real fans, this is the adult Aang in the next film. Eric has successfully traversed multiple formats. There's actually a lot of folks, I know this from your agency at WME, but a lot of studios and networks have wanted you to act for the longest time. You've just been focused on music. And finally, there have been a couple of really heralded studios that have sort of broken through there. I'm curious if you can speak about, because you took so long to choose what roles you wanted, as a good artist does. How do you think about your film and TV roles?
To be honest, it took me a very long time to pursue acting because I wanted to be good. I wanted to be decent at it. And diving into something that I had never tried before was a terrifying, challenge for me, which is actually surprising because I think usually I'm very quick to try new things. But acting was something that I really took my time with. And I don't know if it's so much like, hey, I'm choosing these roles, but I will selectively go for auditions, and from there it's this matchmaking process from the production and the directors of, do you fit this role? Is it the voice? Is it the look? All these different types of things. But there are also roles that I have said no to once I had them, and it is more of a fit. Do I feel like I can really bring this character to life? Do I have the confidence in myself and I guess the self-awareness of who I am and what I'm able to do to really do justice to a great role or a great film or a TV project. And so it has been a learning process for me as well, but it's been a very fun one, and one that I look forward to continue writing, I guess. It's been also very humbling. I think a lot of people ask me like, hey, like, so they just like gave you the roles? Like, no, I literally went through round after round after round after rounds of audition, and acting to me has been rejection after rejection. You go up for 100 and maybe you get 1 or 2, and that's, as a musician, when you're on stage and everything is about you, to go to that side is a very humbling, different experience.
I will say, being on the other side of this, I know that's a very rare experience for you, because what's been really compelling, in the same way that Sunny Lee was thinking about Ali Wong, despite her never having acted for the lead role of Beef, in the same way, I know there are so many filmmakers who have thought about you, even though you had not acted, for their roles as well. So it doesn't sound like it's as hard as you say. But anyway, I'm joking. But I want to maybe shift gears a little bit and broaden this to the industry. We were talking about Shogun earlier. How many of you have seen FX's excellent Shogun? Shogun is officially now the most awarded series of all time in a single award show. Won 18 Emmys. Goldhouse is very proud to help support it and market it. And to broaden this, I think what's exciting is the last season of the Emmys, or the last sort of period, Beef swept, of course, from visionary Sunny Lee and, of course, Steve Yeun and Ali Wong. And then prior to that, Squid Game did very well. And so you actually have, in the last 3 cycles of the Emmys in the West, the sort of arbiter of quality TV, all Asian-led, and the majority of those, 2 out of 3, in Asian-only languages, Japanese and Korean, respectively, for Shogun and Squid Game. When you think about film as well, our diaspora is also dominating film. We have the most awarded film of all time in Everything Everywhere All at Once. We have the most decorated director in a single award season, Chloe Zhao. We have the biggest franchise in the world, Pokemon. So I'm curious, Eric, how do you think about this renaissance in the West of Asian language creative, and how do you think about that when it comes to opportunities in development, production, and so forth?
I think it's incredibly exciting, and I also think it's very recent. It's been only maybe 5 years since, when was Crazy Rich Asians? 5, 6 years? And so all of this is suddenly just kind of flowing out into the world. What I think is a little bit frustrating, and I don't know if you agree, it's even though we as Asian Americans recognize Asian excellence and how well we are doing at awards shows or, on all these streaming platforms, it seems like the general public doesn't really recognize that it is Asian-inspired or Asian-led programming that is really doing such a good job. So I keep seeing articles or speaking to people who are like, we're still very hesitant to really invest in the same way that they would for our non-Asian counterparts, majority white, to be very frank. And so it is exciting, but at the same time, there's still so much advocacy and work to be done. I think Goldhouse does a great job in working and advocating for Asian creators and Asian stories. But also, we are in Singapore and we are in Asia. And I think one thing that I would love for people in Asia to really get excited about is to think and remember that we can do this together. We are able to work cross borders and cross-culturally and really provide the funding and the ability to tell Asian-led stories for a global audience. And it shouldn't just be the Western studios that get to dictate what is and is not cool. Because those stories, all those award-winning shows and movies have been ours. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so astute. I mean, you look at Parasite, which effectively was born of CJ and the great genius that is Mickey, but also its collaboration with the West. You look at what Hybe has done with SBJ and so forth. So I absolutely agree. I think there's an untapped opportunity, particularly in Southeast Asia, particularly in Singapore, to sort of co-develop and co-produce and co-distribute all these next great franchises. I'm also curious, one of the sort of revelatory opportunity, I think, of Shogun was that it was so creator-led. Sanada-san was a producer and had just a different level of agency beyond just being an actor. You yourself are a creator as well. You write, you direct, and so forth. I'm curious, what are the projects that you're allowed to talk about that you're personally excited about? Or maybe what are the trends of projects that you're most excited about beyond, let's say, cross-continental collaborations?
It's a little early for me to share the projects that I am very excited about. I'm keeping them a little bit under wraps, but for me, I think, having done some projects in film and TV, I'm not a very patient person. And so I was like, I want to do more acting. I want to do some more TV stuff. How do we do this? And I was like, we have to go and create these stories and create these platforms that we can, hire our friends and people who look like us to fill these roles. And so I am working on a few films and TV shows that I think are hilarious, are sad, are terrifying, all across the different, the entire spectrum. And for me, I think the focus is, how do we flip the complete model minority myth? How do we completely show Asian or Asian American people as just people in all of our flaws, with all of our great, brilliant attributes, but also our worst ones, and make us completely human for the rest of the world. And I think that is something that, again, all this success is recent and it just needs to be reiterated and improved upon over and over and over. But we have some big shoes to fill when it comes to the incredible people that have been doing it so well.
I think it's an important creative note. I think this is one of the reasons Beef, of course, took off. We actually ran a study that evaluated on-screen Asian representation in the most watched films and TV shows, and realized that, to your point earlier, the Asian diaspora is the only minority to make meaningful on-screen improvement progress. It's actually quintupled in the last 15 years. The problem, to your also creative point, is that a majority of it still paints us either as the nerd or as a martial artist, which I think martial artist is okay, but being just a nerd, I think, can be problematic. So
Absolutely.
Why don't we change gears to business now? So
Business.
I think the other reason I really respect Eric, how many of you know what Dive Studios is? Okay, good. Okay, so you all know. You all probably know because you're one of the agencies that have tried to acquire him. But I think what I really respect about Eric is twofold. One of the things I should say. One is that he's not a pain in the ass to work with, because most creators are so unreliable and inflate their numbers and honestly can't even count to 10. And Eric... I'm allowed to say that. But I really respect Eric, and I think his body of partnerships, and they're really partnerships, they're not sort of logo slaps, whether it's with Alo Yoga, with Samsung and beyond. They're so meaningful. I'm curious if you could talk about that. And then the other reason I respect you is because you've made this actually into a thriving business that is really not about you as an artist. It's really about the cohorts that you represent and have access to that are highly desired. So I think first question again is, you've been a longtime partner to Alo, Samsung, Toyota, multiple skincare lines, which which is self-evident on your face, and food companies. I'm curious, what do brands need to know more about when they're working with artists and creators?
Great question. I think, at Dive Studio, so we started as a content company. We started doing podcasts, and that has quickly turned into all sorts of digital content. We have about 60 to 85 million viewers a month. We are 6 to 7 million across socials, across 1.5 billion views in a few years. And so we've really accelerated growth in the past, honestly, in the past 3 years, it's really kind of taken off. And what we've seen success is learning showing brands how to work with creators successfully. And I think to your question, it's listen to your creators, listen to the artists. I think one thing that's the hardest thing is when a brand has an idea and it goes through the agency process and the back and forth over and over, it becomes a very weird, twisted version of perhaps what you originally wanted, and then an artist has to digest it and make it palatable for an audience. Now, I've worked with brands where they're like, this is exactly the wording that we want, but I know that it's not going to perform. I know that my audience is not going to get my sense of humor or what is an inside joke between us, or showing me in like the most authentic, natural way. And there's always a tug of war that's happening. But I think what brands should understand that artists want this to work perhaps more than the brand does, because we want to think of the long term and doing a long-term endorsement or an ambassadorship. And so listening to the artist and relying and asking your agencies to really, really have an honest, open conversation with them to make sure that everything that they're doing makes sense for everybody involved.
I mean, to put you on the spot and be the devil's advocate on this, I think one of the reasons a lot of brands gravitate towards you, though, specifically areas like you're a clean creator. And I think that the tension can come of wanting to relinquish brand equity to an artist can be more precarious when that creator is just precarious, when they might curse a lot, when they might show their nipple, like it's a whole thing, none of which you do. And so I guess my question is, let's say you were a naughty creator. What is your advice to a brand for engaging with a naughty creator and listening to them?
Well, I think to a counterpoint is, I think if you're choosing to work with a naughty creator, it's because you want some of that naughtiness, right? If you want somebody clean, if you want somebody that's not going to curse or show a little nip, then don't go with them, And so I think it's about that selection process. If you're going to go with an artist, you have to trust that this artist knows their audience the best and have, again, that open line of communication. And I don't know. Maybe some cursing isn't that bad. I don't know.
It depends. Depends how American you are. Let's change gears to your company, Dive. I think what I've been so impressed by is you've translated your imprint with Gen Z, with K-pop and so forth into this full-fledged agency. And it's not just sort of a creative production development agency. You have distribution in your own assets. You have earned media, all this stuff. And I won't say who, but 2 of the top 5 agency conglomerates have tried to acquire you already in the last 12 months because of this prowess. My question to you is, what is the new agency model? What has Dive figured out that, I won't name them, but the big 5 have not?
I think for us, it's cultural insights and really staying close to Gen Z and being as much online as possible. We have, I'm very grateful to say, a great team of really energetic, ambitious, hungry, young team members who are very on the internet at all times. And I am not as online as they are, so they inform me a lot, and we, I think, have a great synergistic effect when we work together. I think the other thing that's very, very becoming increasingly true is speed. We are increasingly seeing a lot of RFPs and a lot of clients say, hey, we need this in a week. Can you activate in 10 days? And for us, it's about having these really tight relationships with K-pop stars, with K-drama actors, with influencers in the States, but also in the US, because a lot of these brands, they're working across continents, across time zones. And so we're able to tap into all different sorts of places and people as quickly as possible. And I think that has honestly been one of our biggest strengths. And then also kind of a creator-led approach. I think with myself doing a lot of the creative with our creative team, it allows us to have a lot of insights into the influencers that we might be working with. Does this artist really resonate with this in a fun, interesting, meaningful way? Those sorts of personal insights, I think, have given us an edge as well.
Understood. Can you maybe dive deeper? That was it's a long day. Can you dive deeper into every brand is trying to figure out how to engage Gen Z and the K-pop sort of fandom in really authentic, consistent ways. What are your top tips for both of those cohorts for large brands?
I think everybody wants fandom, everyone wants stickiness, everyone wants engagement, and I think it's a double-edged sword. You really have to understand the fandoms and what they resonate with and what they're attracted to, and speak their language. And this goes back to the point of understanding the creator and having that open line of communication, because if you're forcing something down the algorithm, it's not going to perform or it's going to backfire. So I think really, that is the utmost importance. And I also have really bad ADHD. What was the second part of the question? Am I answering this properly?
I too have bad ADHD and forgot. No, it was specifically how do you engage both fandoms, both K-pop and Gen Z?
I think there's a lot of just general overlap. There's so many Gen Z. I think I forget the exact statistic, but there's a massive percentage of Gen Z who listen to K-pop. They might not be the biggest K-pop fan, but they are still listening to it. It is on today's top hits. It's on their algorithms. It's on their playlist. And so there is a lot of natural overlap. And so when you're able to kind of pull music, which I think, I should say this. I think marketing is shifting also to passion points. What are people passionate about? What do they get really excited about? It's not, are you Asian? Are you Black? Are you white or Latin? It is, what do you love? And if you love K-pop and you find that K-pop that has hundreds of millions of fans, you're gonna hit a great cross-section of, for us, a Southeast Asian or a US audience that really resonates with this content.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they say it's like, personality-driven marketing and personality-driven economies are now passion economies.
Absolutely.
I think that makes sense. Let's speak about passion. That better be
Hello.
God. Let's talk about, I'm kidding. Please buy Ondo socks. Okay. So I think one of the other reasons Eric is a rare triple crown of multifaceted artist, successful entrepreneur, venture-backed is also because of your personal advocacy for mental health, which is something that worldwide Gen Z is over-indexing and over-reporting and so forth. You've actually built a successful venture-backed company on this with Baby Nom. Where's Brian? Here's Brian. Hello, Brian. Everyone give it up for the Baby Nom. That's right. You get a quiet clap because you're the Baby Nom. If you're the big Nom, you get a big clap. Anyway, can you talk about your approach to mental health, sort of reporting, alleviation, community, and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I think mental health obviously has been a very hot topic over the past few years, particularly coming out of the pandemic. But I think, it's something that is here to stay forever because it is something that affects every single person on the face of this planet, period. No matter what, you're dealing with great mental health or poor mental health or somebody somewhere in between. I think for us with Mindset, we were trying to figure out how do we normalize the conversation that can be very difficult. And for many of us, these conversations, especially in Asian households, are new and they're awkward and they're uncomfortable and they're difficult, particularly with family. But coming back to passion point marketing with musicians and artists, which is so much of what we do at Mindset, we bring K-pop stars and actors and R&B musicians onto the platform to talk about their journeys with mental health, bipolar disorder, anxiety, ADHD, depression, whatever it is. We're able to safely, in a way, have that conversation with the fans. And so we have a massive user base that is on the platform getting mental health, like meditations, sleep stories, quotations, these things that we have found are very, very beneficial to bettering your mental health. It's been scary and it's taken a lot of time to convince and have these conversations with artists who are vulnerable on stage to start with, but then to take it even a step further. But we've gotten to a very good place in having these incredible people open up. I think the part that's difficult is mental health traditionally has not been a place where people have put their money. And so monetizing has been difficult because people are like, I'm paying for what exactly? But I think for us, it's the messaging of like, in the same way that we work out and we eat healthy, you should be taking care of your inner self as best as you can and be proactive about it. And so that's kind of been the journey that we've been on with Mindset.
There's so many parents here. I'm curious, step one for having a sort of eased discourse with your child is to download Mindset. But what would number two recommendation be for all the parents in the room to have these conversations with their stressed out, depressed children?
That's a great question.
Or maybe it's good to be stressed out. I think breeds excellence. I
mean, I think I would like to think that, well, that's a very Asian way to think about it.
That's the way it is. Buy Ondo socks.
I think I would like to think that the majority of the people in this room and the parents of today's generation are a lot more open and forthcoming with the conversations around mental health. And I think that it is leading by example. I think there's so much, when we look to our parents, we're like, they're strong, they're providers, or they're protecting us in some way. But at the same time, parents are human too. And to understand that and to show that and be vulnerable with your children is a very important thing. And because that encourages and teaches them that it's okay to have these conversations, and it completely normalizes it for them.
That hits so raw. I remember I was on a bus one time in high school, and one of my friends asked all of us, what was the moment when your parents first disappointed you? And I remember the day was when I realized my mom was really bigoted against certain things. So yes, I agree. We're all humans figuring it out. Let me change gears. All That Matters is the most incredible institution, not just because it's so inclusive of so many industries, but it really is a gateway to Asia from the West, and really about Asia to the world. I'm curious, you touched on this earlier. What are all the ways that you would like Singapore, Southeast Asia, and Asia writ large to collaborate with the West?
I think as an Asian American that has spent, 12 years in Korea, I feel like I really live everywhere. I would love to see just more cross collaboration across projects, both East and West. And I think Goldhouse is doing a great job in advocating and really providing the platform to get that started. But oftentimes when we're in Asia, we think of Asia. When we're in the US, we think of the US. But finding counterparts and partners across the ocean that are excited about the same things, and really pooling resources, cultural know-how, and just creating synergies across the ocean, I think would be very, very powerful. I don't know how to do it. I think Goldhouse, Bing, you guys are great at it. So if you guys don't know what Goldhouse is, you guys should definitely look into it. But business, film, TV, innovation, just like so many different things that we can do so much better when we do it together. Yeah.
In the last few minutes, let's do some rapid fire. What is the best piece of advice someone has given you as an artist? And then what is the best piece of advice someone has given you as an entrepreneur? And then the third is, and I'll repeat these, what is the best piece of advice someone gave you as a human being? Artist first. This is what happens when you're all three.
Oh my gosh.
It's your fault.
I really want this time to run out faster. As an artist, I think as an artist...
Don't rap. I'm kidding.
I think as an artist, it is not to be scared of being bored. Because I think it's in those moments when you're bored and when you're like, I have nothing to do, I am so bored, where as an artist, as a creator, naturally you're gonna think, what am I gonna do so I'm out of this boredom or out of this rut? And that in there comes like the greatest little morsel of an idea, or the next song, or a film idea, or a business. And I think that has been why I try to make it a point of taking some time every year to do nothing. And I sit there and I get so bored that I walk away, and then I start messaging the dive team or my music team and be like, these are the next things that we're gonna do. And that's kind of how we spin up the next projects.
I felt my blood pressure plummet as I heard you say that. That sounds beautiful. How about as an entrepreneur, what is the best founder advice you've ever been given? Besides founder mode, which is so annoying.
I think for entrepreneurship, it's about being quick to test and pivot. And honestly, I've learned that from my brother. I think the most, he is so aggressive when it comes to, we're going to build, we're going to test it, and we're going to edit and pivot if it doesn't work. But we've been around for about 5 years now, and we've had so many different life cycles within the company. And we are at this place where we are honestly doing very, very well, thankfully. Thank you, Lord. I think it's because we've been very quick to test and edit and be okay with it not being perfect the first time.
And then what about as a human being? What's the best advice you've ever been given?
As a human being, tell your parents you love them.
Wow.
Yeah.
On that note, Eric Nam, thank you so much for being with All That Matters. Wow. I feel like I need to go hug my mother now. All right. And with that, please give it up for the chairman, or as we say, the minority in the room, Jasper.
Thank you.